Here are the top stories on the Wall Street Journal front page tonight. S&P posts worst week since the election. U.S. added 151,000 jobs last month, below expectations. Tariff fights keep the Fed in holding pattern over rates. Stock market saw its worst week this week since September. Lucky for Trump, he's not even watching the markets, end quote. During his first term, Trump constantly used the stock market as a metric for success. He constantly told voters during the campaign that there would be a stock market crash if a Democrat was elected, even though the market has never been higher and your 401k has never done better than it did during the Biden presidency. But now Donald Trump wants us to believe that he's, quote, not even watching the markets. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has been doing damage control on Trump tariff-induced chaos in New York this week because, they're totally not watching or extremely worried about the markets.
If we ever went down 20% on the NASDAQ or 15% on the S&P, with people that want Trump to fail, that's going to be splayed across every newspaper in the world. I'm just wondering whether the tolerance for something like that for the administration.
Well, look, as you said, Joe, the market was up 20% last year, 20%
so there is
the year
some house money.
No. I'm going to put it another way.
Okay.
Did the Biden administration succeed? The American people weren't buying it just because the market was up.
That's Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary stating a true fact. The market was up 20% under Joe Biden as the economy roared back after COVID. But then Bessent says correctly that the stock market is not the only economic issue people vote on. Correct. It's not even the main one. But the stock market is a temperature check for the economy. It is, in a sense, a bet on how people think the economy will do. And the economy is people, workers, consumers, businesses. There's never a time when wages are up and jobs are plentiful and interest rates are low and the stock market is crashing. So when the stock market nosedives, as it did a couple times this week, it's a signal that there's possibly a problem. That problem might be contained to the stock market, but in this case, it might be broader. If Donald Trump's erratic on-again, off-again trade war with Mexico and Canada continues, investors will remain uncertain and businesses won't hire. Trump was at it again today with a new tariff threat on Canadian dairy products and lumber, one day after announcing a pause on some imported goods from Canada and Mexico. This is the first jobs report of Trump 2.0. The U.S. economy added 151,000 net new jobs in February, falling short of economists' expectations of 170,000 jobs. The unemployment rate rose from 4.4% to 4.1%. Federal government employment fell by 10,000 thanks to DOGE. The impact of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's mass firings are only just starting to emerge, and Trump and Elon Musk will say, oh, these are just federal worker jobs. Federal worker jobs are jobs. Federal workers have families. They buy coffee, they buy lunch, they buy dinner when they are employed. They have cars, they have mortgages, they take vacations. The impact doesn't end with laid-off employees, and they're not just in D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, but in all the places across the country, with veterans hospitals and Social Security offices and IRS buildings and farms with USAID contracts. Yeah, there are a lot of them, a lot of USAID contracts buy agriculture from American farms. We're just starting to see the real impact. Joining us now, Robert Reich. He served as the Secretary of Labor under President Bill Clinton. He's a professor of public policy at UC Berkeley and a co-founder of Inequality Media. Professor, it's always good to see you. Thank you for being with us. This does come across a bit like chaos. The tariffs on, the tariffs off, the whole thing doesn't make, there's no theory of the game here unless you have one.
I don't have one, Ali. I'm sorry. It is chaos, and the markets hate chaos. Investors don't like uncertainty to begin with. And by the way, that unemployment report that you got was based on surveys that are done in the middle of the month. They were done in the middle of this past month, but the real chaos broke out with regard to the tariffs over the last couple of weeks. Yep. So I don't even want to predict, but I worry about the next unemployment report.
Let's talk a little bit about what we're solving for. A lot of business reporters today and yesterday were trying to get to the bottom of this. Some of them were conservative, but they're saying, what exactly are you solving for? You and I have talked for a long time about the fact that there's fundamental inequality in the United States. There's a lot of wealth. There's a lot of stock market value. There's a lot of GDP in America. It's not equally divided. That's the thing that someone should be solving for. It's even a thing that Donald Trump argued he would solve for. But that's not what any of this is doing.
No, in fact, it's just the opposite. The people who are paying really in a very large way for the inflation and the inflationary expectations that a lot of consumers have right now. In fact, one of the most important reports out last week was that consumer confidence is going down and their expectations of inflation are going up. And the people who pay most are obviously people who are working class and poor because it takes a larger chunk out of their paychecks. What we're also seeing, Ali, is a great deal of uncertainty with regard to prices. You remember, Donald Trump was elected by a lot of people who thought the economy was bad. You and I know that the data actually showed the economy to be pretty good, but prices did not come down.
Right.
And what they really wanted was prices to come down. Prices are not coming down. Donald Trump is doing nothing to get prices down. In fact, quite the opposite is happening. Those tariffs, if they go through, and I assume they will be going through, are going to raise prices. And if he goes through with his threat to expel and kick out of the country, 11 to 15 million American workers, even if they are not properly here, that's going to also have a huge negative effect on prices.
But the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said something interesting. They're changing the narrative here. He's saying low prices. I'm paraphrasing, but he says it's not really the American dream. That shouldn't be our goal. Whether that's true or not, whether we should be paying more because we should have universal health care or we should have higher wages, that's a different story. Y'all campaigned on bringing prices down, and you're actually engaging in things that will bring prices up while supporting a federal budget that is going to take all of these cuts that Elon Musk is undertaking and put them toward tax breaks for the wealthy.
Exactly. And it's not just Doge and Elon Musk's compatriots who are making these cuts. The Republican budget also talked about $880 billion of cuts in Medicaid and other social programs that people depend on, particularly working class and poor people, in order to make way for what is expected to be $4.5 trillion of tax cuts. I mean, this is reverse Robin Hood on steroids. This is not what a lot of Trump voters voted for. They probably, I would expect that they have a lot of buyer's remorse right now.
Well, the $4.5 trillion in cuts, though, there's some fancy math going on with alternative math, let's call it. The argument that Republicans are using is that don't count those because they were already on the books. We're just extending them, so they shouldn't count as $4.5 trillion, which is kind of like saying I spend $250 a week on groceries, and I'm going to keep on spending $250 a week on groceries, so let's just take it out of the budget because it's already there.
That's
that $4.5 trillion.
It means that the federal debt keeps on growing.
Yes.
And the deficit keeps on growing. And the amount of that money that pays actually bondholders, people who hold the debt, keeps on growing. So in that way as well, average working people and the poor are being shafted.
The question is when they'll catch up to this, because the average viewer is astute. They knew they were paying more for the price of eggs. They understood that. You can't tell people they're not. They're also going to realize they're paying a lot more for the price of eggs now and a whole lot of other things. And they're going to see a whole bunch of wealthy people get a tax cut at the expense of their Medicaid, their community health centers, their VA hospitals. Bob, good to see you again. As always, former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich.
Thanks, Howie.